Good morning.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April session of the Kentucky Leads Academy. I'm Bill Buchanan. I'll be facilitating today's session. We greatly appreciate everyone's participation, and so in a moment I'll review the agenda and just want to again welcome everyone. I want to especially thank the scholars again for your time, your dedication, your leadership. Participating in the academies, deepening your knowledge and capacity to provide service and support to districts, your regions, and our states in the delivery of special education services. I also want to thank our leadership team and the curriculum committee, the advisory group, and our higher education partners, including Morehead State, Murray State, and Western Kentucky University. With that, I would like to go ahead and ask that everyone sign in this morning using Padlet. And Becca, if you have the link and could put the link in the chat in a moment, the Padlet link will be available in the chat. We would ask that everyone sign in. Next, I'm going to review the agenda. In a moment, Dr. Mike Abel will give us words of welcome from HDI. Dr. Williams and Thomas Williams and Pete Heckner will provide us with project updates. Becca will provide us with training and technology related to our work through the Kentucky Leads Academy. And our keynote, our featured speaker today is one of our scholars and KDE lead for the SSIP, the State Systemic Improvement Plan, Andrea Craig. Following that, we are going to introduce something new to the academies, to the academy work, and that is breakout discussions. We're going to break up into rooms. Andrea Bartholomew, Nicole Barnett, and Kathy Anderson will facilitate each of those rooms. Afterwards, we will have sharing as a large group, followed by the evaluation and wrap-up. So again, thank you everyone for your participation. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mike Abel. Dr. Abel is a director with HDI. He is involved in policy development, providing support, data collection, analysis, and professional development in several areas of new research. Over the past several years, he has been with HDI and has worked on the IDA Technical Assistance Data Center and the Kentucky State Personnel Development Grant, the SPDIG acronym. With that, Mike, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Bill, and welcome, scholars. It's great to be here and see all of you. We're in amazing times right now, and the opportunity you all been given is just a wonderful one that I'm excited about for you all. As Bill said, I work at the Human Development Institute at UK, and we work very closely with KD on a number of different initiatives. I was fortunate actually to be a part of the writing team that wrote this grant through OSEP out of the U.S. Department of Education. We're very fortunate here in the Commonwealth to have it funded and to have you all as the first group of cohorts for this 5-year project. So as I was thinking about special education, I've been in special ed almost 30 years now, seen a tremendous number of changes. And the time that we're in right now is one that I've never seen before in regards to change and shifting of how we do our work, and not just in education, but really globally in business and policy, government practices. And so it really is kind of a watershed moment. And the opportunity you've been given at this juncture to be a part of special education will allow you all to do some amazing things. You know, I think about just some of the things in education right now that are Herculean. You know, I think about non-traditional instruction, NTI, and how we're delivering instruction to our students. I think about the role that funding and how it's being shifted and moved around at the federal level to the state level, and the role that you all will have in that as future directors of special education. And then too, I think about new teachers coming into the field, non-traditional teachers moving into special education. I think about how teachers are leaving the field and moving into other fields and some of the challenges that brings to special ed leaders. So all these things are things that you all will be dealing with as future leaders. And so I wanted to share a couple things that hit me as when I was kind of in your all shoes almost 30 years ago, things that I wish I would have heard or things that I learned along the way that might be of help to you, because you all are really the next generation of leaders. And the opportunity that you have right now to talk with KD leaders and other leaders in the field is wonderful. And I'm excited for you all, and I encourage you to use this opportunity, soak it in, ask questions, take notes, because the things you're learning now, you'll be utilizing and thinking about 30 years from now. First thing that you all already know, it's a tough job. It's a difficult job, and so work hard. That builds respect. People see that. People watch leaders in schools, and they may not necessarily say a whole lot, but they watch what you do, and they watch your actions and what you say. So if they see you working hard and making a difference, that goes a long way. It builds relationships, and that's what you need to do. The second thing is build a team around your special ed teachers there in the district that you'll be working at. And when they see you working with them, going into the schools, building that collaborative relationship, knowing that you're there for them, trying to help them make a difference for kids, that goes a long, long way, so that you're able to build or have a level of respect with them and they see that. Another one is find a mentor. Mentors are critical. And I had and still do have people that I can call and just freely bounce ideas around to say, hey, here's what's going on. Does this make sense? I'm not sure how to handle it. It really, really will help you become a stronger professional and take some of that burden off of you, because especially in some of the smaller districts, you may be the only one with really a significant amount of special ed knowledge. And so really do that. And it could be a retired dose. It could be a dose from another school district, etc. The next one is, it's a little different. Have a friendly critic. What I mean by a friendly critic is someone who you can ask to come in and take a look at something and really give you an honest opinion about that. This could be a mentor, but really it's going to be someone that really understands the programs that you're working in, and they can come in and give you an honest assessment. This could be a retired special educator or retired administrator that can really look and say, hey, here's some weak areas that you need to really improve on. So having that friendly critic, it's really kind of taking a deeper dive into your program to give you feedback on that. Next one is pick your battles. You don't need to fight battles every day. Be strategic about the battles you do fight, but you will need to make tough decisions. Good leaders make tough decisions, and don't be afraid of that. But make those tough decisions using good information, informed decision making. And if you've got mentors, you've got friendly critics, you have respect in the district, you're going to have enough information to help guide what type of decision you should make and what battle you should or shouldn't fight. And then next one is look at data strategically. A lot of young leaders don't understand the importance of looking at things from the bigger perspective, because a lot of times you're just trying to fight fires and just deal with, hey, I've got 2 teachers that are leaving right now, or I've got a discipline problem at the high school I've got to deal with. But make time to step back and look at data from a strategic kind of 30,000, 10,000 foot level. What's going on in the district? How can I improve my RTI program? What does my data look like for my kids, my special ed kids? What are my office discipline referrals look like? And you can actually find other people to help you. If you can't find some folks in the district, I remember sometimes I would pay stipends to some teachers that I worked closely with, I had a lot of respect for, who were kind of my data team, but I also had people outside the district. So keep those in mind. And last but not least, really look at this as the beginning, not the end. You're a lifelong learner. You being here really separates you already from a number of professionals in the field. And so Some of you all will go on to be obviously directors of special ed, but you'll also become assistant superintendents. Some of you may become superintendents. Some may go on and get your doctorate, be researchers in the field, work at university levels, be policy analysts at the agency or other nonprofits. And so it's an exciting time. I wish you all the best and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, Mike. We very much appreciate you sharing with us those words of wisdom. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Thomas and Pete to provide us with some updates about the project.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thank you, Dr. Abel. Pete, do you want to start, or do you want me to come behind you, or how do you want to?
Dr. Williams, you can go right ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Pete. Before we begin, I do want to restate our group norms, because I do think that it's going to especially be relevant today, as we go into our breakout rooms. And this is also going to be a practice that we'll use each meeting to state the norms, just so we can make sure it's at the forefront of our meeting. So the first one is participate respectfully, be considerate and welcome multiple viewpoints, devote your attention to those speaking and sharing, ask questions for clarification, be courageous and speak your truth, own your intentions and your impacts, and honor our time together. So those are our norms, and we will continue to state those norms at each meeting and in your breakout rooms. A few updates. So I think we mentioned this at the last meeting, but just as a friendly reminder to, if you have not enrolled or looking to enroll into a program to the 3 universities, to go ahead and start doing that. I know that Pete and myself, we began to reach out to those who have not, because the expectation is that each scholar is enrolled in one of our 3 partnering universities within the 6-month grace period. So if you have not, or if you need additional support, please feel free to reach out to myself or Pete, and we'll be more than happy to support you with that process. The evaluation. So I believe last month, we began to implement an evaluation survey at the end of each seminar. Per the data, we only had 7 participants to complete the survey last month, and we want to strongly encourage everyone to complete the surveys at the end of the seminars, because it helps us better improve this practice, because again, this is for you. And we also want you to be very truthful on things that we need to work on, because again, this is for you, and we are looking to improve this process for you. The next thing is, it's very, very exciting. We have the Kentucky Leads logo, and I think that's one of the exciting things of being a part of an inaugural cohort, is that you get to experience all of these things with us. And from years and years from now, you can say, you know what? I was a part of, or I was, a part of the inaugural cohort, and I got to see the logo first. So we'll be sharing that logo with you at the next seminar, but that's very exciting. And it also shows that we're definitely moving this initiative forward. So again, welcome everyone. We're happy that you're here. It's always good to see you, and have a good seminar. Pete, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Just wanted to add on to the both of the points that you made. One, the IHE. Again, as you all well know, university work is cyclical, and it's semester driven, and so I would urge all of you all. We have reached out and made contacts. I feel very good about the progress that's been made so far. Continue to pursue and touch base with the universities. I know you're all in different places with your programs. Many of you are initiating the leadership model. Some of you have already had some experiences there. So please, I urge you to make that happen. And then lastly, what's interesting about the survey, or the survey of I'll just call it the satisfaction survey. I really, really enjoyed the anecdotal comments that were provided. The data is important. I don't mean to say that, but I find myself oftentimes just checking through it and completing it. But I really would urge you to provide as much detail as you can in this era of reviews. It would be really, really useful to the committees to see where you are and where you would like to go. So with that, I'm going to close it down. And Bill, if you'd like to take over with the facilitating, please.
One more thing, Pete, if you don't mind, and Bill, sorry. I do want to make mention that the surveys are anonymous. So, if, when you complete the surveys, they are anonymous. So, I did want to also make mention of that. And also, after each meeting, the team and I, we're looking at that data. So we're definitely looking at the data to see how we can better improve Kentucky Leads.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Pete. And absolutely, the data is very important to us and in terms of making improvements to the Academy as we move forward. Next, I'd like to introduce Becca. Becca will be providing us with some training around technology and how to use technology in effective ways, especially in our virtual environments. Becca.
Good morning. Good morning. So less of a training, I would say. Today it's more of just a reminder of some of the tools that we have, some of the tools that we're using, and a little bit of homework. So the theme of what I wanted to touch on today is accountability for engagement. And to start us off with thinking about accountability for engagement, I wanted to just remind you of I'm going to share my screen, of our home base. And if you open up our home base, you'll see, let me give it a minute. Are you guys able to see that now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So here are all of the tools that we have. We have links to today's agenda. You'll see links to join the session. This right here is the April session Padlet that we are using to take attendance. But keep in mind that this is really your tool. So if you have anything that you want to share, feel free to let your personality show as well. It's hard to connect virtually. So anytime you have an opportunity or you see an opportunity to make a connection or kind of, or show yourself and your personality, feel free to take advantage of that. So that's how we're going to take attendance today. There have been a couple of people that said that their schools have blocked, their districts have blocked this URL, and that's unfortunate, but let me know and I'll sign in for you. And we'll go back to the home base. Today, we're also going to use Jamboard. It is during our breakout rooms, we're going to use Jamboard. It's new to me. I've had a lot of fun playing around with it, but this is the one that we are using just as kind of like a, do you remember back in the day before COVID, you'd be in a room and everybody would put up the parking lots and every table had sticky notes and you could write down any thoughts or connections or something that you wanted to share with the group. Look, I love it. People are already playing with the Jamboard. Please feel free right now. You can use, there's a pen that you can use. There is an eraser that you can also use. And I think it does look like, I see several of you are accessing that now. Here's the sticky note function. It comes up, you get to pick your color. You can say, good morning. It looks like that one went over another one. Yeah, so they're kind of populating on each other. You can move them around. Add an image. I added this image. from the web when I was just playing around with it. You can, there are different shapes that you're able, oh, I love the rainbow, thank you. Different shapes that you can use. If you want to create a text box, you can do that. And again, there's the laser pointer, which is a lot of fun. It it reminds me of being in the classroom. Oh my goodness, my first graders loved that. So this is the Jamboard that we're going to use. As you can see, it's getting really full right now. So what I did for our breakout rooms, we have 4 breakout rooms today, and I created 4 separate Jamboards that you can access, but don't get too nervous about it. Like, mostly we just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to use these. It's yours. You're not going to mess it up. Like if you can't find you're like, oh, I don't know which Jamboard my team is using. Use whichever one is the easiest for you to find. It's your tool. So let's see, back to, you guys continue to play around with that. Oh, our mindful meeting tool. This was something that I wanted to touch on today as well. This was created by someone here at KDE in the Office of Educational Technology. And this tool, you are welcome to download and use at any meeting, at your district meetings, with your classroom, just whenever you feel the need, like to kind of use this tool to bring awareness to the audience. If you want to include it in your group norms, it kind of is like group norms part of it, but you announce yourself. It can be difficult for someone watching the interpreter or closed captions to also find the person who's speaking, so you'll state your name prior to speaking. With this group, I don't think we have any accessibility issues, so I don't know that we would need to, well, actually it might be good while we're making connections to faces and names if you do announce yourself. Speak clearly and slowly. That is really hard for me to speak slowly, especially when I get nervous. I tend to speak faster. But if there is an interpreter, that can be a real burden on someone who is interpreting. Don't interrupt, it's really hard to do. We have the raise hand function with Teams. So if someone is speaking and you just cannot wait, like you have a connection to make and you want to break in, go ahead and raise your hand. And there are several people here that are helping facilitate, and they'll, kind of break in and say, oh, so-and-so would like to have a chance to speak. This is turn off video. If you're not actively speaking and not required to have your camera open, this is because it can be distracting, but also we want to maintain bandwidth. At the same time, today we're going to have, in your breakout rooms, we're going to have a request that you open your cameras, because we want you guys to begin to form the connection of community, right? So we want you guys to put a face with a name and put voices with a name. So the turn off video, that is better with a larger group. But for today, we're going to ask that if you're comfortable and if your bandwidth allows, when you're in your breakout rooms, if you'll have your camera turned on. Think about your content, rethink the content. Make sure that you distribute materials. That is what we have done with Kentucky Leads, with this home base. This is where you come to get your materials, and provide resources. Oh, I'm sorry, be descriptive when using images. Don't use phrases like click here. That can be pretty ambiguous. Provide resources. That's what the home base is for. Ask for feedback. And again, let me just remind you of what Thomas said. These surveys we do use, and we want you to provide feedback to us. so that we can make this time, it is your time, and we really want to make it something that you look forward to and it's beneficial, and we want to make sure that we're using this time for you in a way that's helpful for you. So this tool is available for, oh, and I'm looking over here because my camera is here, but the screen that I'm manipulating is over here. So that's the mindful meeting tool that you can download. The homework that I have today is this article. It's called How to Get People to Actually Participate in Virtual Meetings. It's the longest title ever, but it does have really good content in it. And it was published by Harvard Business Review. And again, we do not have time to like break off and read it now, but that's something that I would like for you to do as homework. And you can respond to this the next time that we get together in May. We'll give you an opportunity to respond to this. You can respond to it on any of the Jamboards. You can respond to it on the Padlet. This one is going to be used for to take attendance, but we can also repurpose it and use it as just a way for you to share. You can respond to it in the chat. So what I hope that you're hearing from me is that we have a lot of tools at our disposal, and I don't want you to feel inhibited when using them. These tools are for you. We can, as we go, we can change we can kind of change the purpose of them if you feel like we need to. And finally, to wrap up, I just wanted to take this chance to ask if there's anyone that has a specific need or would like to take this time to comment on technology, comment on any challenges. So if you'd like, you can raise your hand or you can just open your camera and speak.
Thanks, Becca. There were some questions in the chat, but I think the scholars have been discovering and figuring out how to address those questions themselves. Wonderful. So, for example, some were having difficulty accessing the mindful meeting tool you shared, the resource, having difficulty accessing it, but were able to find it in the general resource folder. So.
I really love the way that you guys, I noticed in the very first session that we had with the Padlet, you all were asking questions and answering one another. I think it was Stephanie Sullivan she provided so much support on that Padlet, and I really appreciated that. And I like that sense of community and the back and forth conversation that can occur in that atypical way through that technological resource. So thank you. Bill, it doesn't appear that we have any other questions or concerns, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, but thank you for this time.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you for sharing with us. Next, Andrea Craig. I'm pleased to introduce Andrea, a fellow scholar, as well as Kentucky's State Transformation Specialist in the Division of IDA Implementation and Preschool, Office of Special Education and Early Learning. She's going to share with us more about Kentucky's State Systemic Improvement Plan, and this is within the strand of Administration and Finance. With that, Andrea, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Bill. Hope everyone's doing well on this Saturday morning. I'm thankful to have the opportunity to share with you all some of the work that I am able to do here at the department as the State Transformation Specialist, which is really correlated with working with the State Systemic Improvement Plan, or the SIP. So I'm really excited to get started today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you all cannot see it, please let me know.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. All right. And I do want to just ask one question really quick to Kathy. I know that you'd said that you had a few questions. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't overlooking you before we jumped into the presentation this morning.
Thanks, Andrea. I'll go ahead and copy and paste the link to the couple of questions about the ESSEP just to kind of springboard us off into your discussion this morning. So I put a couple of questions over in the chat for people to kind of let us know what they know about the state systemic improvement plan, or as we call it, the ESSEP. And if you would just click on that link there and answer those couple of questions. And Andrea, if you don't mind, I'll share my screen so we can see the responses that people give.
Yep, perfect, Kathy. Go right ahead.
All righty. So as of yet, we don't have any responses yet. I hope everybody's able to click on the link to the questions in the chat box. And there we go. All right. So the first question is, what is the purpose of the state systemic improvement plan data collection? And we've got several people who are saying that it's to improve state systems for, I can't remember what for special education across the state. These were the questions. What is the purpose? And to implement the state identified measurable results, to improve state systems for special education across the state, to report to the Office of Special Education the system improvement data. And the second question is, how is the ESSEP funded? IDA funds, local funds, or state funds? So back to the responses. Pull that up so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so most people are saying, Andrea, that it's to improve state systems for special education. I can't talk this morning, across the state. And how is it funded? Through either ID funds or state funds. It looks like most everybody has responded. So I hope that kind of gives you some formative information about what our attendees know today. So I'll stop sharing and give it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy, for doing that for us. Hopefully you all will be able to see my screen in a moment. Maybe. Are you all able to see my screen yet? It's saying that it's sharing, but it's not.
Yes, I'm able to see it.
Yes, it's
Indicator
good.
17.
Yes. Okay, perfect. It's telling me that I need to request control or stop presenting, so I wasn't 100% sure. So perfect. I'm glad that you guys can see it. I am going to shut my camera off just to protect the bandwidth and to make sure that you all can hear me and the slides advance properly. And hopefully, like Becca was saying earlier, I will be able to speak slowly and clearly because, as everyone knows, when you get into a situation like presenting, whether it's in person or virtually, we tend to speak a little bit quicker, and hopefully I won't have that happen today. But if you guys have any questions as we go along, please feel free to use the chat box. And I know that Becca is monitoring that. So if you ever have any questions, please just populate them there, and then we will have opportunities throughout the presentation to respond to a few embedded questions at that time and have a quick discussion. So, all right, so we'll just jump into the SPPAPR, so that's our state performance plan or annual performance report, indicator 17. So that is our state systemic improvement plan. So the State Systemic Improvement Plan is supported through the Office of Special Education Programs, the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP. I know we've all heard that acronym several times in multiple different settings, especially through the work that we've done through KY Leads to this point, and we'll continue to hear it. So OSEP has developed an accountability framework called the Results Driven Accountability, or RDA. The RDA seeks to balance the educational results and functional outcomes of students with disabilities with the compliance requirements of the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA. This is inclusive of the state's development of the Systemic Improvement Plan, or the SIP, which is a comprehensive multi-year plan, which is part of the annual performance report, which is Indicator 17. So how does this tie into federal funding and requirements in regards to the SPPAPR for Indicator 17? So as we learned in our last session, Chris Thacker presented on finance, specifically within more of the state perspective, although we did get a good overview of the federal perspective as well. And then Amy Patterson also presented on data quality, focusing on the state's performance plan and the annual performance review indicators and their requirements. So she was able to give us all a really great overview of what the SPPAPR indicators are and the requirements of each of those. So today I'm going to lead you all through that Indicator 17, which has a lot of different components to it, as it is a multi-year comprehensive plan. So some ties for the SIP to the federal funding perspective is that it is funded through the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, and states are awarded that federal funding under the Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA. It is a requirement in that IDEA Section B, Part B, Section 616, in that annual performance report or state performance plan, so the SPPAPR. And it is Indicator 17, the State Systemic Improvement Plan, or SIP. I probably will refer it to the SIP more likely than not throughout the presentation. So if you hear SIP, just remember that that is Indicator 17, State Systemic Improvement Plan. So let's dive a little deeper into what exactly is Indicator 17 of the SPPAPR. So it is a comprehensive multi-year state improvement plan that focuses on improving results for students or children with disabilities. Instead of having multiple small improvement plans for each indicator, it encompasses a broad strategies and detailed improvement activities to reach the goals of the SIP. It is submitted annually. In previous years, including this year, it was submitted on April 1st. However, it has changed to be submitted on February 1st with all of the other indicators as we move forward. The big thing about our SIP is that that report is providing data that provides evidence of meeting our state identified measurable result, or our SIMR. So our state identified measurable result, or SIMR, is listed here on the screen. I won't read it in its entirety. I tried to make sure we were bolding out those highlights so that you guys can kind of see where our targeted area is. So the SIP focuses on the state identified measurable result, or the SIMR, which is a statewide focus. So it is to increase the percentage of students with disabilities performing at or above that proficient in middle school math, specifically in that 8th grade levels where we like to focus on. And the emphasis is on reducing novice performance by providing those professional learning, TA, and support to elementary and middle school teachers around the implementation and scaling and sustaining of positive behavior interventions and supports and evidence-based practices in math. So with the SIMR being a statewide focus, within Kentucky's area of focus, there are two different areas that you can look at here on the screen. You have PBIS as well as mathematics. PBIS was added this last year, so we're really I guess you could say, new to collecting and solidifying the system of support that surrounds the PBIS portion of the simmer. However, we've been within the mathematics portion of supporting our simmer and our SIP for, I believe this has been year 6. So in Kentucky, in that area of focus, it was identified through a data and infrastructure analysis with a diverse team of stakeholders, and it was found that 80% of students with disabilities were not proficient in middle school mathematics. So the goal was set to reduce novice and increase the proficiency of students with disabilities in middle school and elementary school mathematics within that general education setting. Since we know that in Kentucky, over 70% of our students with disabilities are being taught within that general education setting, 80% or more of their day. So knowing this, and we know that math is cumulative, we wanted to make sure that we included both elementary and middle school levels so that we can really accurately push on improving those results or increasing those results. So based on stakeholder feedback, like I stated, this last year, we did have the addition of PBIS into the simmer because we know that if students are in class and if you have good PBIS supports within the classroom, then students will have a better opportunity to learn, therefore impacting math scores. So through the SIP, we provide what we call intensive supports. Now we know that this is a state identified measurable result. This is a state systemic improvement plan. However, from our perspective, we also have intensive support structures within the SIP that intentionally push on the simmer by providing, through mutual selection, a process for regional cooperatives to provide intensive supports to districts and their schools. This is done through the mutual selection process through the Kentucky Department of Education and our community partners to support that effective teacher practice and improving the outcomes for students with disabilities through the use of implementation science research. The SIP centers on developing those supports to close the gaps to improve educational results for students. And the implementation science framework can be applied and the process can be replicated effectively to implement any innovation. So this is the foundation of everything that we do through that intensive support structure that we have that really focuses in on this and pushing on the state identified measurable results within that intensive support structure. And we know that through the process that has been had and that we've laid the foundation for through the mathematics, we know that replicating that process for PBIS will be something that can be done effectively and can be done and scaled to any other innovation or process for schools. So the focus is to address the need of our simmer and for KDE to address that need of the simmer with our stakeholders through a linked teaming structure. And that is going to be discussed here in a moment and more in depth. And that is also focused in on the foundation, like I said, of the implementation science. So moving forward, so this is a QR code, so you all should be able to use your cell phones. If you open up that camera on your cell phone and just hover it over your screen, you should be able to have a link pop up. So we're just going to do a quick check and just get some thoughts from you all as scholars and from our group into what is the importance of the state identified measurable results statewide. So I'll give you all a minute to pull that up, to kind of populate that Jamboard, and then I will share it so that we can have just a quick discussion to see what our thoughts are. Yeah, absolutely, Stacy. I'll populate the link for you guys as well.
Andrea, this is my first experience with that, and it just opened the QR code, opened it right up, and this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Becca. And I did populate the Jamboard link in the chat box, so hopefully you all have some success via that if you are on your computer and like to have that bigger screen. I know sometimes it can be a little more complicated doing it on your phone. And I'll go ahead and share that Jamboard as it's being populated so we can kind of see some of the information that's coming in.
Andrea, I checked the link that's in the chat. It's working well too.
Thank you so much, Bill.
I'm going to place that link in our home base so you guys can also access it there. Just give me about 60 seconds and it'll be there as well.
All right, so some things. Thank you so much, Becca, for doing that. I appreciate that. So some things that we have that are coming in, this allows the states to be working towards the same goal. Perfect. Yes, we want to make sure that we're working towards that same goal to improve our outcomes for students with disabilities. Long-term, to improve STEM capabilities of KY resident jobs in Kentucky. Right. To increase in PBIS all classrooms, which will result in better math proficiency for students with disabilities. Improve outcomes across the system through a unified goal. I really like whoever did that. I like the way that you really captured everything that's trying to be done in a really concise way. Comprehensively target social behavior skills and academic performance for students with disabilities throughout the state. Perfect. Close achievement gap. Yep, that's a huge one. Improve outcomes for students with disability across the state, and then also make sure that states is systemically working toward on the same goals and the results are measurable. Perfect. All right, so it looks like we got about 7 responses in here. So these are great. These are great. I'm glad that you guys have a really good understanding. I know that that my first experience with the SIP was when I first came into the position that I now hold here at KDE, and it can be very overwhelming. It can be very complicated at times to try to explain to individuals. So I'm glad that we are well on our way to being on the same page, especially when it looks at that statewide perspective. So feel free to continue to populate ideas here, and I'm going to reshare my PowerPoint so we can continue in the presentation. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, perfect. So thank you guys for participating in that Jamboard. I'm glad that everything seemed to be working technologically in regards to those links. So great thoughts that we had on that Jamboard. So it is the push to make sure that we as a state are unified in improving outcomes for students with disabilities. Now, in particularly, we are pushing on the SIMR, the State Identified Measurable Results, that are tied to improving outcomes for students with disabilities in mathematics, as well as that PBIS realm as well. All of our targets are tied towards that mathematics piece. And like I stated earlier, we know that if we have good PBIS supports in place, that math outcomes we believe will improve, because if kids are in seats, kids are hopefully learning and able to improve their math skills. So now we're going to dive a little deeper into the way that we at KDE and our stakeholders or our community partners really push on this and provide or capture data through our intensive structure. So in order to push on the simmer or to impact the simmer, we do provide intensive supports, and this is accomplished through that mutual selection process where each level of the system is linked, regions, districts, and schools, and they select to participate within a transformation zone or a TZ. Lots of acronyms, you know, we're in special education, so we live in the world of letters and acronyms and things like that. So we call it our transformation zones or TZs. So on this map, you can see the different color codes. So in the transformation zones, we refer to those as TZs, and this is a vertical slice that's small enough to be manageable, yet large enough to be representative of the whole. So it's a data slice, if you will. We currently have 3 cohorts, as you see on the screen here. And in those 3 cohorts, we have 6 of our 9 special ed regional cooperatives that are currently engaged in this work and are providing those intensive support structures through that linked teaming process that was described. So kind of just to give you all perspective, because I know that this can be really intriguing, especially if you may not be familiar with it, or maybe you're in a place that maybe your co-op is not currently involved or engaged in this mutual selection process. So as you see, we have Cohort 1. Cohort 1 is consistent of 2 regions currently and 5 different districts. I don't have the exact building number at this moment in time. I didn't write that down, but I know that it's rather large once you get down to those building level teams. Our Cohort 2 is consistent of 3 regions with 4 districts currently engaged, and they're continuing to scale in each of these cohorts. And then our third cohort is composed of 1 region, and they currently have 2 districts engaged in the work. Thank you, Catherine. I didn't want to call anyone out, but we do have several individuals that are part of our KY Lead Scholar program here that are engaged with our TZ efforts, whether it be from the regional perspective, the district perspective, and even that building perspective. So I'm really happy that Catherine, you volunteered that information. I know that you would probably be able to speak very well from that regional perspective, especially, and then down to how that has impacted the support structure that you have within your districts. And then I do know that Abby, thank you as well for letting everyone know that she is also supported through this transformation zone structure and that linked teaming structure. You're absolutely right, Katie. Dwayne would not be happy. So, well, I'll make sure to let him know that you jumped in immediately and shared the great things that are going on through GLEC and JCPS.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Get you some brownie points with him. So, and thank you, Katie and Abby, for jumping in and letting everyone know that you are a part of this transformation zone structure. And I'm sure that once we go into breakout rooms, some of our colleagues may have some questions for you all. And please feel free to obviously answer those openly and honestly, and stick to those norms that we have that Dr. Williams went over with us at the beginning of the meeting. So as we look at this a little deeper, so how do we do this? Like, how do we set up the structure, and what foundation do we have that pushes on this? So I did mention earlier that a lot of this intensive support is provided through that lens of active implementation or implementation science. So through this intensive support, we use that lens of active implementation to support district level teams by having that support from the regional and then up to the state to support their schools to implement effective innovations or effective effective implementation of evidence-based practices. So this is done through a usable innovation, or you could kind of compare that to math practices, and then the effective implementation, and then we enable those contexts to then support the improved outcomes. So we do this through the formula for success that you see on the screen that I just walked you through. And stakeholders co-created a practice profile, which is our mathematics practice profile, to support usable innovations in mathematics, so that everyone was in agreement throughout the state on what's being measured, no matter what math innovation may be used. So when we think about math innovations, we think about maybe different math programs or different ways of teaching mathematics within the classroom. We want to make sure that no matter what a teacher uses, that they are supported and that we are all, as a state, on the same page about what good math looks like in a classroom, and that is done through our math practice profile. I do have a link at the end of the presentation that takes you to our SIP website, and that math practice profile is now available to all individuals throughout the state. So if you guys have any questions about that, especially those of you that are not actively engaged in the TZ work and efforts, please feel free to review that and let us know if you have any questions or feedback on that. So through this formula for success and active implementation, we want to talk about what works, like what works, and what are those common expectations that were set. And then what does effective implementation, or how does it work? Does effective training and coachings and systems measures look like, so that when we enter schools, that we are knowing we are creating that enabling context where teams can use implementation and outcome data to improve the system overall. So that by the end of year 3, that we are having those significantly improved educational outcomes that begin to close those long-standing disparities in some populations. So I know that you probably heard 3 to 5 years. That's kind of the timeline that we use, because we know that this is not anything that can be done, anything in education has to be done with a long-term view in mind. So we have to make sure that we are taking the time and doing the work and laying the foundation, so that we know that in 3 years, we will find those educationally significantly improved outcomes via the data that we collect. Now, that may happen sooner, that may happen a little later down the road. It just depends on where the district may be at and working with their regions and their schools. So we do that through this link teaming structure. We also know, let me say this before I move on to the link teaming structure. We also know if one of these things is not present, that we won't have those improved outcomes based on the data. So everything must be present to push on that improved outcomes for students with disabilities. So now let's look at our link teaming structure. It's really a unique situation that we are in today, because we do have state, regional, and district building level representation here on the call today. So that's really awesome. So you'll get to hear several different perspectives, especially when we jump into our breakout rooms. So we have our state implementation team, which is composed of multiple players or stakeholders here at the state level and decision makers. I myself am a part of that team as well. Then we have our regional implementation teams, which are from our regional transformation zone partners. So I'm going to use Katie for an example. Katie is a part of one of those regional implementation teams at GLEC. Then we have our district implementation teams that is also composed of leadership and individuals from the district level. Abby, I know from Raceland, is a part of that as well. And then we have our building implementation teams. I'm sure Abby, being a principal, she does have a dual role in making sure that she provides support not only to her district level, but also her building level. Thank you, Krista. I thought that was the case, but I didn't want to speak out of turn. So I really appreciate you bringing that up in the chat box. Krista is also a part of that district building level teams as well, to support the work that is done through that link teaming structure. And this is all drives to our fidelity and outcomes. So to help teacher practice and to reach the students, And then we also make sure, oh Lord, thank you, Bill. We also make sure that we're reaching down to each level of the system and providing that feedback loop and that PDSA cycle. So for our purposes today, we're going to focus really heavily on the district implementation team, or the DIT, and the administrative roles of leaders in special education, and removing not only technical challenges, but also adaptive challenges. So I'm going to just go ahead and populate all this for you guys so that we can try to wrap this up. So our district level implementation team, or our DIT, there again, we have the acronyms. In the context of Kentucky, we have that link teaming structure, and the DIT is supported by the regional implementation team to support the schools to implement effective change and practice within their schools. So a goal and function of the DIT is to develop the implementation capacity in schools and to establish that sustainability for teachers' use of usable innovations with fidelity. So mathematic innovations with fidelity, usually composed of 5 to 10 members, depending on the size of the district, and usually is inclusive of our district leadership, superintendents, directors of special education, school level administration, directors of curriculum, as well as preschool coordinators. They meet monthly to analyze data. I know that Mike touched on that earlier, how important it is to have those data teams to identify training and coaching needs within their district, improvement needs of their current system, and also to focus on how they are currently dealing with their support of the SIMR and use of outcomes, or use of evidence-based practice to improve outcomes. This team also works together to lift up barriers to the regional team to be solved, as well as if they cannot be solved at that regional team level, the regional team will then lift them up to the state so that we can really push on that practice to policy feedback loop. I am going to go ahead and just skip over our Jamboard, just looking at the importance, just wanted to get some thoughts. And if you guys want to populate that as we go through this meeting today, please feel free. Because I would love to know your ideas, whether it's now or later. But just kind of thinking about the role of the DOS or the preschool coordinator on that district implementation team. So to wrap up, we do have some key roles that I'd just like to touch on in regards to the DOS or the preschool coordinator. So the preschool coordinator and the DOS are often the driving force behind DICS for various reasons. They can serve in multiple roles for that district. So I know that we've had districts that maybe have the preschool coordinator and the DOS are the same person, or have multiple roles depending on where you're at and what your school district's composition looks like. So in this role, the DOS or the preschool coordinator you're the advocate for your special education programs, and you have to find that balance between not only compliance, but results. So those are huge things that we wanted to push on, making sure that we find that balance, because our end of the day, like, we know our goals is to have a balance between the compliance, which is a huge piece of our work, but also making sure that we're having those improved outcomes to back up the work that's going on within the school district. Statewide, it's also important to recall that even outside the transformation zone and the support of that link teaming structure, this is still something that can be done, or that is an important factor for directors of special education and preschool coordinators. It's still the responsibility for pushing on the SIMR and improving those outcomes for in mathematics for students with disabilities through the effective implementation of evidence-based practices in mathematics, or PBIS. So lastly, we do have this just quick information. If you guys ever have any questions, please feel free to email me. I do have that webpage listed there, and I will populate that into the chat box so that Becca can place that on our website. And I thank you guys for letting me present. I'm sorry we went a little bit over, and Bill, I will hand it back to you.
No worries. Wonderful information, Andrea. Thanks so much. Very much appreciate your sharing. And Kathy, too, thank you so much for the questions. My apologies for not seeing and acknowledging you with the awareness questions to get us started with that segment. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Becca. We're going next into breakout sessions where we can have some conversations and learn more from one another about this topic.
So can you guys see me? Of course, while Andrea was presenting, my computer decided to do something crazy, made me super anxious, but looks like I'm back. The technology and resources that we shared a little bit earlier, the Jamboard, the Padlet, you guys can access those now. What we're going to do is use breakout rooms, and this is the time for you guys to come together in smaller groups, and the focus is going to be less on us and more on you. This is your time to open up your camera, and speak freely with one another. Each room is going to have a facilitator to help guide the conversation, but really it's going to be on you to participate and to share. So let me see the breakout rooms. I believe I have everyone assigned to a breakout room, and you don't have to do anything. Once I open those rooms, you'll be placed into them, and then when the time is up, I'll bring you back to this main room. So if you have any concerns, you can use the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and start those rooms now. Hey, it looks like I have one person left with me.
It's me. This is Krista Taylor. I was having issues with technology, and the only thing that would let me do was call in. I didn't realize it wouldn't allow me to a breakout room.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So
I will try to, I think it's my Wi-Fi for some reason. I haven't had issues with it prior. So I can always call back in. Let me see if I can join again.
Okay, that sounds
and
good.
if not, I can I've been using the Jamboard and the Padlet. So I'll participate through that. That's just fine.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Sorry, I haven't had this issue prior, but
of course, it always happens when it's like least convenient.
I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So, but I'm here.
I got
All right,
you.
I'll participate through there. Are they just going to be participating on that Jamboard posting, or is it strictly conversation?
I know they're going to use the Jamboard, and it's also going to be conversation. I wish there was a way that I could. Yeah, it's not coming up. People who dial in on the phone cannot join breakout rooms. So maybe you could hang up and try to join again. I don't know.
I can absolutely do that. And then if not, I'll just call back. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
one.
Oh,
Well, that was weird.
yeah. Sorry, Kat.
Now we're back. What happened? Hello.
What happened?
It's
I-
sad.
Must be
All
back.
right.
That's
Wonderful learning.
I tried to give everyone a heads up. I apologize for the
No.
abruptness.
We
Good.
got the heads up. We were ready to go.
Yeah.
I love seeing everyone's cameras open. I tried to jump in each breakout room while your cameras were open just to get a glance at who I'm working with. I appreciate that. That was fun. So, Bill?
Yes, I think now we'll turn it over to each of the facilitators. Thank you, everyone, facilitators, scholars, for participating. Now we want to have a chance to share out just high-level impressions, ideas, what was shared and learned during our breakout sessions today. Nicole?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so within our group, I think one of the main questions was how do we select the districts? How were districts selected to participate, in the ESIP and that process and those transformation zones? And so we talked about that and why only math? Why was math selected as the main focus? And Andrea, we were blessed to have Andrea in our group, and so Andrea, of course, was able to let us know why math was the focus, and that it was due to the data that they looked at for it, and the likelihood of if a student was failing math, then more than likely they would not graduate from high school, and so that was why it was one of those focus areas. But because of the way that the SIP is developed, if districts wanted to kind of take that as a model and look at different areas, they could do so. And I think that's pretty much what we've discussed.
Well, Bill, this is Kathy. We took a few minutes to just kind of introduce ourselves again because it had been a minute. And it was interesting to find out all the different backgrounds. I mean, we've got people that have worked K through 12, we've got counselors, but people who come from a multifaceted background, that's for sure. And we were talking about there at one point about, what's helped us learn about special education. Who was that was instrumental in helping us know more about special ed? And many of the people in my group said it was the special ed consultants in their district, those specialists. And we talked about what made that person, important to them, that mentor. And they what resonated, I heard several times, was they were not intimidating. They felt like they could talk to that person. They were very knowledgeable, but they did it in such a way that they didn't feel like that they were being made to be made small or that type of thing. And another person said that many general education teachers, and I hadn't really thought about this, but they feel like that special education can be intimidating at times, that there's a fear that comes with it. Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing? That type of feeling. So that was one of the last things we talked about. We were beginning to talk about when we had a plan that was successful or maybe not successful, and we hadn't gotten too far with that. But our last question was just about, who was your mentor in special education?
Sure, this is Andrea. My group, building upon what Kathy had just talked about, was talking about how things are successful, how the best ways that we learn. And one of the biggest things that stuck with me was that the adults need differentiation too. We do that for our kids without thinking, but we do need to do that with our grown-ups as well. And when we're training or mentoring or talking or planning, having different outlets in different ways for different learners. Our group was like Kathy's, very varied, but there was lots of connections. Lots of people have worked in the same buildings at different times, in different locations. So that was kind of interesting to see and to hear. One thing that we talked about, the SIP, we all gave Andrea big props there for doing that, how detailed it is and how time consuming it can be, even with the district level or at a co-op type level, that there's just so much detail in it that it can be overwhelming. But then I think that our group talked a lot about the impact of roles in our lives, impact of people that have mentored them and have helped them. We did have a connection there between Pete and Stacy. Stacy was in Pete's classes at Western, so that was kind of fun, that student mentor level there. But at the end of the day, I think that our group was pretty varied as far as experiences and roles, but really excited to learn more about the SIP and how it relates to their district. Bill was in my group. Bill, do you have anything else to share with that?
I think you have it. That's exactly right. Well said. And thank you, Kathy and Nicole and everyone. I guess I would now see Andrea. If you have anything you would like to further share with us, Andrea Craig, reflections or responses based on the sharing in your session and as a whole, responses or reactions.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to present today. I know that the SIP can be very overwhelming at times because there are lots of pieces that are embedded into it. I will say that there was a question that was brought up in our group about, they see that there may not be very many districts really involved in the intensive supports that we currently have. And I would encourage you, if you are part of a TZ currently, or even if you are not currently part of a TZ, I should say TZ meaning like within a regional structure that has signed on to be part of that TZ network, I would encourage you to reach out to your regional cooperative if that's something that you as a district level would be interested in. Reach out to those individuals within that special education cooperative to get more information. And I know that we have a couple individuals that are in co-ops that are outside of that TZ region. I do want to let you guys know that we are reaching out to those co-ops as we do every year to offer up the opportunity if they would like to participate or not. But also just reach out to your regional co-ops because they can be a really great asset to you and the work that you do and providing supports and training and coaching opportunities. So thank you guys so much for the opportunity to present today.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks, Andrea. And scholars, are there any additional points that you would like to share or questions that you have about today's session? Okay, very good. Well, we're ahead of schedule, but if it's okay, we'll move forward now into the evaluations and wrap up. If there are no further questions, what I'll do now is I'm going to put the link to the evaluation in the chat. And what we would ask is that everyone, if you could, please complete the evaluation before leaving today. As Dr. Williams and Pete shared earlier, the evaluation data is very important to us. And it's anonymous, but we need this feedback. We want to take the ideas that are working well in this session and continue to incorporate those elements in our Saturday sessions. Also, it's a chance for us to improve, and you'll see and you'll begin to notice changes and improvements to the Saturday sessions based on your feedback. So we value your input. And with that, Dr. Williams, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, so just so thank everyone. We just want to thank everyone for participating in today's Kentucky Lead seminar. We hope that the information presented today, you'll be able to take back to your perspective, schools and school districts to better improve, or just have a better knowledge of the SIP. Just a reminder that we do have our Kentucky Leads logo, and so we will be sharing that information with you at the next Saturday seminar. And I think that's all that I have. Pete or Becca, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Pete, I did not mean to come in front of you. Go ahead.
No, I'm fine. Go right ahead, Becca.
I was just going to remind everyone that links to the May session and information about the May session, including the agenda once it's ready, that will all be found on our home base, as well as links to the resources that have been introduced here today. Any follow-up information that Andrea Craig has to share, we'll place that there as well. And as much fun as working on Saturday can be, it is fun with you guys, and I appreciate these opportunities to continue to build a relationship with you and to have this ongoing conversation. So thank you for your time.
Oh yeah, one last thing. I want to, and be honest, Pete, I hope I didn't cut you off. Just to say a huge thank you to Andrea Craig, who is your fellow cohort member, along with our facilitators, Andrea, Nicole, and Kathy. Thank you so much for supporting Kentucky Leads today. Pete.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in with the thank yous to all that made this thing possible. And it was just great to hear some of the personal pieces in the breakout room that I was a part of. So appreciate you. See you next month.
Thanks, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.